Welcome to the Scaled Up Twilight podcast, where we bring the best founders, CEOs, executives, and investors to help you scale your business from 1 million to 1 trillion. Today's guest is Lucas Lovell, the VP of Product at Paddle. Lucas, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Mike. Very happy to be here.
My pleasure. And I was just discussing with you on the pre-call that some years ago we did a lot of meetups together between Paddle and Scaled Up Valley. And when we agreed to do this podcast, you were not even aware because at that time I think you were not yet at Paddle, so small world, right?
Very, very small world. Very small world. But yeah, we do lots of events with companies like yours. So great to hear that there's a relationship there.
That's amazing. And yeah, let's get started. You have been 4 years at Paddle. Let us know more a bit about your background and also this journey with Paddle, because you went from almost a product manager at an individual contributor role, IC, to product leadership, VP product nowadays. How it was fascinating, I would say, so far. And yeah, feel free also to give a briefing about what is Paddle. So I'm just opening the stage for you and go whatever you want.
Yeah, I'll go right from the start then. I'll tell you. Perhaps I can start with how I wound up in product at Paddle. So
That's amazing.
yeah, my background is interesting actually. I studied law at university and realized about halfway through doing my law degree that I didn't really fancy being a lawyer. This was back at home in Australia, and took quite a keen interest in technology and business, and decided that was the path that I wanted to get on. But it's a very different path to going into being a lawyer from law school. So I was sort of stuck in a bit of a moment of trying to work out how do I get onto that path, right? And I thought that the best way to get onto that path was to go and build an app, and I did that with a couple of friends, which was a really interesting journey actually. So I started the mobile app. Well, it was a mobile app that eventually turned into a more fully fledged SaaS product. But we started that journey in sort of my second to last year of law school, and then it ended up taking us all around the world in the end. And we grew and built that company. We relocated it from Adelaide in Australia, which is where I'm from, to Paris in France. We were a tourism product. So we sold a SaaS product to tourism companies. It evolved from a mobile app. I won't go into the
Well
detail, but
done.
it evolved from a mobile app into a SaaS product. And we ended up running that company for about 5 or 6 years, which was a really exciting journey. We raised a little bit of money. We were a part of some really fun and rewarding acceleration programs in France. You might have heard of Station F, which is one of the big sort of
Absolutely.
incubators and accelerators in Paris. We were at Station
Yeah.
F for a
Emmanuel
while.
Macron did the
Yes,
inauguration with
correct. I was there that
and
day.
it was
Yeah,
Roxanne Varsa, right? This was
correct.
the leader of Station F. Yeah. Awesome.
So Station F opened in my second year in Paris, which is quite a long time ago now, but that was a massive moment for the French tech ecosystem, and I feel very
So,
lucky to have been a part of that. Went on that journey, which was really interesting, and had an amazing time. It took us around the world, taught us how to think about building product and talking to customers and growing a company. Very green, but a wonderful experience. And it all came unstuck for us during COVID, actually. So because we were a product, well, we built a product that we sold into tourism companies, into medium-sized tourism companies. A lot of our business really dried up during COVID, and the whole adventure or the whole journey started to go a bit south. So that was the start of my journey at Paddle. I ended up leaving the company. All the co-founders decided that we were going to wind the business up. My other two co-founders went back to Australia, but I was pretty keen to stay in Europe and see if I could continue the adventure
you did
for a
well.
few more chapters. And then I found my way to Paddle, and I didn't really know much about Paddle at the time. I was really interested in the product. I think I resonated with the value proposition, having run a small startup that wanted to scale internationally and attempted to do so. So landed in a product role at Paddle just off the back of Paddle's Series C fundraise. There was a big hiring spree after the
Mhm.
Series C fundraise that I was a part of. The business at that point in time was about 90 people, I think, about 90 people, around the 100 mark. And I've sort of grown with the company over the last 4.5 years. The company is a much bigger company now. We're about 300 people. We've been through a Series D. We acquired a company called Profitwell in the US, which is a story that lots of folks in the industry are aware of, which was a really amazing experience. And also sort of individually, I guess, growing from being a product manager to being in a product leadership role, which has been quite the ride. So I guess like there's two journeys that I sort of think about at Paddle. There's the company journey, which has been quite amazing over the last 4.5 years, and then also the individual journey, going from being a product manager through to being VP of product and leading a wonderful team of product managers. Um, so yeah, I guess for those who aren't familiar, Paddle is a end-to-end billing and payments product. We help our customers capture revenue all around the world. We help them grow their companies, and we do all of that under a merchant of record model, which means we handle all of the tax and compliance around the transaction, enabling companies to grow without constraint. And we work with a lot of really ambitious founders who want to take their products global from day one, and we play a small part in them doing so. So it's a really rewarding role. It's a great product. We have a wonderful customer base, and it's been a really exciting journey to date.
That's awesome. And there is a very nice SaaS report also coming from
Yes.
Pavel.
Yes.
So I think you all should check it out. I'm getting a lot of value, and I'm not saying this because Lucas's ear is. I'm generally saying that I've been consulting your material, and it's quite good for anyone who likes SaaS and wants to benchmark and understand how the industry is evolving. So, and this is super cool. There is something that I always like to say, that the best VPs are the ones who are able to be passionate about their function, but think like CEOs, right? This founder experience, entrepreneurial experience before coming from Australia to another continent to Paris, especially with a different language. And we know that French really like to speak French,
We
not
sure do.
not English. I'm sure that this also requires, again, something that are critical skills for any VP and for any founder, which is adaptation, adapt to the market, understand the market, be persistent, but also at the same time, don't try to reinvent the wheel. I think all those skills are really important as you scale up a company, because you also need to reinvent yourself at least every 12 months. And I would say every 12 months at this stage of growth. If it was earlier, probably every 1 to 2 quarters, you need to become a different person to keep up with the pace of the company. But I think it's at the same time, I know I'm doing a lot of comments here, and allow me to brainstorm with the audience and with you, which is, you also need to be able to go from more a founding position where potentially you had a lot of decision power, to go back to PM and trusting you that you would get to VP product and get probably to a more executive kind of role, where you would have a more participation in the game. But maybe the culture is so good that at the PM level you already felt that you had skin on the game and an impact. So how has been this transition, and how it helps you to be a better VP product today?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Thanks for sharing those thoughts. I think the first thing I'd say is Paddle is a great place for founders. We have a number of ex-founders at Paddle, and I think it says a lot about the company culture. Like empowerment of people is a really core component of how we build and think about our organization, and we also really believe, especially in product, in decentralized decision making.
Awesome.
So the way we operate, I think, lends itself to people who have founder backgrounds, and we're also an ambitious company, right? So I think that's important. Founders want to be in an environment which is
Exactly.
ambitious and fast paced and always thinking about the future. So I think joining a VC backed company like Paddle that has very strong ambitions was a great place for me to land, and I really gelled with the people here. And I think they also put me on projects that really enabled me to lean into my experience and use my skill set. So it's also on us as leaders to deploy our people in the right way, right?
Mhm.
In ways that they can be most successful. And we always think about that, right? In leadership here at Paddle, when we hire people, we know that, the difference between someone who has a founder background and someone who might not have a founder background is going to mean that they're going to have different strengths, different weaknesses. Founders aren't perfect, by the way. It's not all upside, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes founders can be really challenging to work with.
Exactly.
But I think one of the things that really attracted me to the company in the first place is something that I still try and encourage today, which is like creating an environment that founders can really flourish in. Like we probably have 4 or 5 actually at the company who have run businesses beforehand, spanning IC roles and leadership roles. So I think that's the first thing I'd say, that Paddle is a great place for founders to be. But yeah, you're not wrong, right? Like the transition from being a founder to working inside of a large sort of scaling company like Paddle
Mhm.
is interesting. I think for me, I hadn't worked in a larger company before, so it was a first for me. Like a lot of founders have worked in companies like Paddle, then go and start their thing, and then might go back again. So there's an element of familiarity there. Whereas for me, it was curiosity. I was actually quite interested and excited about the opportunity to learn from people who have scaled organizations and run more successful companies than I had, right? So I think for me, I came into the business with the attitude that it was going to be a learning experience, that I was going to learn a lot from the people at Paddle, and I did, and I definitely have, and I think that has sort of also set me up for success in some ways. The fact that I did probably sort of lean into it as a learning opportunity. I think one of the mistakes that some founders make is that the nature of being a founder is that you have extremely high conviction that you are right, and when
Right.
you come into an organization, sometimes that can rub people up the wrong way. So I think when you're transitioning from founder to employee, it's just about managing your expectations, understanding that your skill set can be deployed in really good ways, but also you can learn from that experience as well. You can learn from the people inside that company who've had a different path to you. And if you go in
Yeah.
with that mindset, then I think almost always you're going to find yourself being really successful and accelerate and progress pretty quickly through the company because your skill set is so unique.
Yeah. Something interesting is we like to say that, right, the first PM in the company is the founder. And sometimes the founder, CEO, if we have more a technical CTO, which is typically the combination of a founding team. So I think at the same time, it seems a natural fit for a PM to be a founder because, again, you also need to be comfortable combining a lot of different disciplines, which is exactly what founders need to be comfortable is you need to be comfortable with uncertainty, with a lot of variables, with patterns, with testing things without giving up, being persistent, being able to pitch, to present your vision,
Yeah,
at the
yeah.
same time adapt. When I think it's, of course, I don't have a product background, but I've worked with several product leaders across the years and even PMs in my leadership team work, and I got to understand a bit more about the PM role, and I fully respect the work they do. So how does this evolve? Kind of, having your own cell, and I think also something amazing about the PMs, and correct me if as I'm not technical, if I'm doing any mistakes here or sharing any mistakes, is sometimes you need to work with a team that you don't have authority over. You just have influence, which is a lot of what founders do again. So you don't have, probably in the beginning of your startup, you don't have a lot of amazing compensation packages. So you need to bring people for the passion, for the vision, not because you are able to pay them a lot of money. So they are not coming because of your authority. They are coming because of your vision, because they appreciate to work with you, because they believe they can grow with you, and because they believe in the vision, right?
Yeah, I think it's super interesting. I made an intentional decision to go into product from being a founder, right? Like when you're a founder and you start your own company, you do everything. You do marketing, you do sales, you do finance, you do product, right? You
Exactly.
you you do everything, and I thought about like, oh, should I go into a sales role? Should I go into like a more of a commercial go to market role? But I ended up deciding that actually working in product was probably the best use of my skills as a founder. And I think that's why we see lots of founders move into product, because one of the
Mhm.
things that makes you a great product manager is that you have the ability to work with people who represent different disciplines and therefore represent different objectives, right? So
Mhm.
one of the things that we often talk about in product is especially as you get more senior, is a lot of your job is working horizontally across the business and not just vertical within your swim lane, right? So the fact that a founder can come into a product team, um, having run their own business, understand what marketing, what good looks like, understand what good looks like in sales, in finance, in legal, there is absolutely, I'm absolutely not saying that they're experts in any of those fields, right? By any stretch, especially in an organization that's much larger, where the problem set in each of those
Right.
disciplines is much more difficult and
It's
much more
enough.
challenging. But the fact
Exactly.
that you can be in the conversation, right? The fact that you can somewhat speak their language a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Hold your own and enter into a really healthy dialogue, right? Where you can represent the product perspective, but also have a lot of empathy for their perspective, actually makes you very effective in your role. And so I think ultimately, I meet lots of product people who've gone and done their own thing in the past, who've started their own company in the past, and it might not have worked out, or maybe it did work out, and this is sort of the next chapter in their career. But I do think there's something about product management that really lends itself to the founder background. When you think about the product life cycle, so we think about sort of discovery, delivery, and adoption.
Mhm.
Discovery being going out and learning about the problems that your customers are experiencing and going deep on those problems and finding data, be it data that's external to the business, be it internal user data, be it researching different technologies. All those components of discovery is one part of product, and that requires you to interface with sales to get access to customers, with success to get access to customers, with marketing to sort of understand like top of funnel and how our demand gen funnel is
Right.
working. Then you think about delivery, and that's like, okay, work with engineering and sort of like actually put together the necessary artifacts to go and take something and convert it into reality, and design, and sort of that classic product engineering design triad.
Mhm.
Then you think of adoption, which is about, okay, how do I actually get that thing that I built into the hands of
Sound.
customers? And along sort of the life cycle, you're interfacing with so many different people around the company. In a product like ours, fintech and payments, regulation is really important for us to stay on top of. The regulatory landscape is complex, so we have to work very closely with legal when we're thinking about the things that we could build or the
Mhm.
direction that we want to go. So you have to have a conversation there. So sort of the way you work is very much like, oh, I have to go and like think about all these different disciplines in the company and understand their perspective and have empathy for their perspective, but ultimately sell them on a vision, sell them on a direction that we want to take the product, right? And that sort of requires you to have a bit of sales in you as well. One of the best things I ever did for myself as a product person is have a bit of a background in sales, right? Even though I'm not sort of an AE
Yeah.
selling to customers, I still sell a lot. I'm selling internally, I'm selling to stakeholders, I'm selling to our executive team, I'm selling a roadmap, I'm selling a strategy, right? I'm getting alignment. And all of that requires you to deploy sort of communication, I guess, methods and be able to put your sales cap on. I think product really brings together a lot of different skills, and that's what I love about it as well. By the way, like that's what attracts me to the role. But yeah, I do lean very heavily on my founder background all the time working in product.
Yeah. And it makes me think of that quote, we are all in sales, even if we
Exactly.
are not formally in
Yeah.
in
100%.
sales. And
100%.
that's a very good point that almost as a product manager, let's say that you are managing a company with stakeholders that are not part of your direct team again that you need to influence and you need to convince them to come with you on a vision, on a journey. And then when you have the product VP products, probably you need to lead different startup founders and align all those companies and make it a portfolio with a common corporate strategy, so they all have their own business strategies, and we kind of have a holding of companies that makes the big product or the big platform congruent and that align with the go-to-market. Is this a good analogy to kind of differentiate the transition from PM to VP product? Or what do you think are the skills and the muscles that needs to be developed for you to go through this career progression?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I think there are a bunch of things that change. The most obvious one being the scope of your role changes. So when you're a PM or an ICPM, you're usually working within a sort of a single pillar of the product or a single problem space. Ultimately, at Paddle, where we are one product, right? We are
Mhm.
not sort of a group of small products. We are one product, but there are products within that product, if you like, right?
Right.
And those products or slices of the product are owned by different product managers. So, for example, like we have ownership over our billing product, and we have ownership over our payments product, ownership over our checkout product, right? All of that comes together to provide the holistic paddle product or paddle platform. But ultimately, as a PM, the scope of your role is limited to that particular domain or area of the product. And then at a VP level, the scope of your role is sort of the whole thing, right? It's taking all the parts and bringing them together, and sort of thinking about discovery, delivery, adoption across all of it, without being in the weeds as much as you would be as an ICPM, sort of going deep on one particular component of it. So the scope is naturally different. I think something that I think about a lot is like, what's your primary artifact? And your
Hmm.
primary artifact as an ICPM is probably your roadmap, right? Like you own your roadmap, and that's the main thing that you have to
Right.
manage day to day. And you think about strategy, and there's strategy is bi-directional. Strategy comes down from the top, and it's also informed underneath. But your primary artifact is your roadmap at an ICPM level. Whereas as you get more senior, your primary artifact becomes strategy, right? So I'm no longer
Hmm.
managing a roadmap. I'm managing a strategy, and the strategy is designed to inform the roadmap. So I don't view the
Right.
strategy as an artifact for me. The strategy is an artifact for the product managers to go and curate excellent roadmaps that take the company forward, take our product forward, right? So there's sort of this roadmap versus strategy dynamic that really shifts as you get more senior.
Hmm.
And at a VP product level, that is your ownership, right?
Hmm.
It's really owning the strategy and direction of the product. And then I think, as I said earlier, another key difference is sort of this concept of working vertically versus working horizontally. Like my primary team or my primary stakeholders are like other leaders of other functions to make sure that we are achieving cross-functional alignment on the direction that we're heading, to make sure
Yeah,
that we're all in the same boat, rowing together in unison to move forward
exactly.
as quickly as we can. And then I think the other thing that is probably different is like the metrics you're looking at every day. So of course, like in the leadership role, you're overseeing adoption metrics and all the other metrics that are coming out of the
Hmm.
product, but you're also looking at business metrics. You're looking at revenue. You're looking at gross margin. You're really thinking about,
Exactly.
how do I connect the product in its entirety to business outcomes and business impact, and staying on top of that is super important in a VP role as well.
Yeah, you just crossed an important topic that probably this has been discussed so many times in podcasts. Maybe we would not stay there a lot, but maybe I would just to try to provoke here a bit our conversation is we know if product leaders, right, and have this founder mindset that they are comfortable to navigate across different disciplines. Why do we have such a lot of silos sometimes coming from product and the go-to-market functions, right? So I'm sure you have been like myself in companies that it seems that sales, marketing, customer success are speaking one language and product is speaking a completely different language, and they are not able to get out of that chasm or that friction. They are not able like think like CEOs first and functional leaders second. They are much more thinking about how do I protect my team, how do I fight for more resources, instead of what does the team as a whole needs and what the company needs in order to succeed. And maybe also a reflection is, does it help that you have more of a founder mindset in your journey that probably you don't, or at least you help your leadership team at Paddle to not face such a big friction that you see in so many companies? And I would say I also don't like generalization, right? I think you can see that also in different stages. I think sometimes we have the problem, we fix it, we bring new leaders and it's solved, or we work on the team, right? It doesn't mean that this problem is always there. I think there are stages and seasons, especially when we are in crisis and moments of inflection and moments of transition. That's when those problems emerge even more, right?
Yeah, yeah, interesting. This is something that we are much better at now at Paddle. I think we went through a bit of I don't know what the word is, but we went through a process of sort of trying to find a much better sense of alignment between cross-functional leaders.
Mhm.
I think it's a maturity thing. I think some companies are much better at this and become better at this over time. But for us, it was it was definitely a journey that we went on maybe 2 or 3 years ago where I felt like there was more friction between functional leaders, and now I feel like there's actually very little. I think there's a few things that play into it. The first one I'd say is just alignment on strategy. How much clarity is leadership giving functional leaders? So say Exco, for example, how much clarity are they giving functional leaders on the direction that they want the business to go in? Because
Hmm.
often functional leaders disagreeing with direction or disagreeing on certain topics is because they just lack unified clarity around the direction that the company should
It's
be
true.
going in, whether that comes from an executive level like the CEO, or whether that comes from the board or whoever it is. But I think once you give functional leaders that sense of clarity and that sense of this is our aligned mission, strategy, vision, right? I think a lot of those problems
Yeah.
start to go away. I think another thing that we spent a lot of time on as a cross-functional leadership team is ICP, right? So sometimes sales sees a big opportunity over here, right, with this particular type of customer, and they think, oh, if only we could build those three things to go and unlock that type of customer, that would be wonderful. Yet that's just all that is the opinion of the sales leader, right? Whereas the product leadership team might actually be thinking about this direction, right? And we had this problem at Paddle where we actually just didn't have alignment on ICP. We didn't have alignment on are we building for the same type of customer that you want to sell to, right? It sounds like a pretty simple question. It's actually not. It's
But
actually a
it
very
isn't.
complex question,
Yeah.
right? But it's such an important question for cross-functional leaders to align on because ultimately, I mean, it's just one step downstream from strategy, right? Like, are we all aligned on the ICP that A, we're building for, and B, you're distributing to, and
Yeah.
and that conversation, and it's usually like a multi-month conversation, but it's a
Yeah.
super important one, right? I think the other component to this is also personal incentivization. Now, it's real that a product leader is typically incentivized on different things than what a sales leader is. So in sales or commercial roles, you typically have much like short term incentives are much more common.
Exactly.
So they typically operate on sort of quarterly quotas, and they will be
Hmm.
paid based on the outcome of that quarterly performance. Whereas a product leader doesn't have a quarterly quota as it pertains to sort of bookings or that sort of stuff. And so product is probably more inclined to make decisions for the long term, right? They're less inclined to be making decisions for the short term and more likely inclined to be making sort of medium to long term decisions. So the horizon of your decision making is very different, right? And I think that's where the clarity becomes even more important because you need to have something that you can come together on and agree, listen, yes, our incentivization structures are quite different as individuals, but ultimately we want the same thing, right? Which is this outcome for paddle, and we need to be aligned in how we get there. And it will always be true that personal incentives will vary between different functional leadership roles, right? I don't think you can get away from that. I'm not suggesting that we should go and change the
Hmm.
incentivization structures sort of between product and sales or success. But you do have to navigate some of that complexity. And the way you do that is through clarity of strategy and vision.
And I think it's also important that incentivization, when you kind of the leadership team all aligns in terms of the vision that they want to achieve and to kind of have a common layer of compensation if we achieve the vision. So we can also kind of play the short, mid, long term, especially for the revenue leaders, right? Because then, okay, I want to earn well in the short term and achieve my goals. Also because I know that my role as a sales in a sales position, if I miss several quarters, probably I will not be here a long time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, but at the same time, if I make the right thing, if damages my results in the short term for the company, I will be compensated anyway because this is where our vision is going. So as a leadership team member, I will get compensated by making a not so popular decision as a sales or customer success leader. However, I would say customer success is more a farmer, sales is more a hunter. So that's where typically you also don't like a lot of change because typically you don't even like new things. You want things that are already working and that make you calculate better how you achieve the number of account executives that you need with the conversion rates, with the number of meetings, how much will it land in terms of ACV, deals closed, and quota made, and as you said, commission paid. So I think it's really important the team, and we go back to the founder mentality is, I think at a certain point, also especially at this stage, 300 people, we become more going from the pirates to more corporate kind of structure. So people are less there for the passion, but also for the gravitas, the money, the status, so many stuff. Just to say that I'm working at a super special company, whatever it is. But a lot of times, and there is nothing wrong about it. So I think that money is an important asset and tool for all of us, and we can do a lot of good things with more money in our bank account, and sometimes even make better decisions and support more people, right? So there is nothing wrong about it. But I think the trade-off between passion and money is a bit more, it's completely different from the trade-off between money and passion at the founder level. So, and I think this is also elevates even more the friction at the C-suite or at the leadership team level. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think so. Directionally, I think it's funny. We actually are still trying to maintain a sense of scrappiness and I mean I think you use the term you
Culture.
go from being pirates to corporates. We actually have spoken very openly recently about we want to be more piratic. Like we still want the pirates because
That's nice.
you need to have a blend, right? You need to have a blend, and I think people, to sort of take your term corporate, you do need people who can bring operational maturity. You do need people who can
Exactly.
bring systems and processes. You do need people who've been there, done that, and seen a company go from where we are today to where we want to be in 2, 3, 4, 5 years time. It's all important, but I think you need to blend that with the ambitious, passionate, piratic, rule breaking type of personas that can
Yeah,
come in and really make a difference, right?
that's true.
And sort of keep pushing boundaries. I think when a company loses that, it starts to impact like their ability to grow at pace, et cetera, et cetera. So I I I very much believe in having a blend of both. And I think Paddle does
Yeah.
too, by the way. Like I think Paddle is one of those companies that, we've over my time here, we've brought in a lot of really sort of mature leadership, which has been great because it's really leveled up the organization in many ways. But I do think we have sort of still a nice
Yeah.
cohort of folks who really like to push boundaries and get their hands dirty on certain things.
Yeah. And sometimes we the ones who are more in the tech ecosystem and in the startup or scale up ecosystem sometimes forget that for those large corporate leaders, a 300 company for them, it's kind of still a bit small. It's quite risky and it requires a quite of passion to join. Maybe the 300 to 1,000, that's one layer, but then 1 to 10K in terms of employees, that's another layer. And some of them maybe are considering to exchange coming from a 10K plus employee headcount company to a 300. It's a big risk. You are not coming just motivated by the money. You are coming again motivated by the passion. How, as you said, how do I uh, share my experience running a 500 or 600 or 1,000 headcount organization to a 300 headcount organization that is moving into that scale up process? I agree with you. It's curious. Another topic that I think it's critical and it's in all our conversations right nowadays, which is I think we all, as users, more or less literate in terms of AI. We are seeing how ChatGPT Pro is evolving. I think we all get surprised at every single day that we use. Or I think I talk from my experience, my team, we are bringing it a lot to meetings and just playing with it as it was almost a member of the team. I think at the time, I'm already having conversations with ChatGPT, and I know I'm kind of being too simplest by saying ChatGPT is just the AI tools we have with much more solutions that we have out there. But how do you see AI impacting product, and how do you see the future of product organizations with the influence of AI?
Yeah, yeah, super interesting question, and something that I think all of us are still trying to work out, right? You know, we've made a ton of progress in the last year on AI. Like, it's just amazing what you can do now that you couldn't do 12 months ago. But I still think we've got a long way to go. I use AI every single day without a doubt. I'm on ChatGPT, Gemini every single day. I use it for all sorts of tasks. I know all of our PMs use it for all sorts of tasks. Everything from helping them write SQL queries through to supporting analysis of data, through to helping them come up with meeting agendas, right? And
Exactly.
crafting comms and writing an email and helping them with structured thinking. And I think they're all wonderful use cases because ultimately they're making us more efficient as product people. And I think the main thing that I'm seeing at the moment from a product management perspective is execution is just becoming cheaper and faster, right? If product managers are spending less time on executional grunt work, things like writing product requirement documents, digging through data, building discovery templates, because all of that you can just do 4 or 5x quicker now with AI. And it's not to suggest that AI is doing all of it, but it can really accelerate your ability
Exactly.
to do those things. So I think the first thing that's happening is that execution on the grunt work is just becoming much cheaper and much faster, right? Which is a great thing, I think, because it means that PMs can spend more time on strategic thinking, on talking to customers and all that sort of stuff, which is great. So
Mhm.
I think it's also going to force PMs to level up their strategic thinking.
Mhm.
And I think when you level up your strategic thinking, you sort of unlock another more use cases for AI to sort of
Mhm.
help you along that journey. I also think that in terms of the building part of AI, like how products are helping us build things, I think the quality of prototyping and generating proofs of concept is going up a lot, right? So I think a
Mhm.
product manager can easily get something into an MVP state or a prototype state without requiring design or engineering resource. And I don't think we're yet at a point where those things can necessarily be productionized, especially in a company like Paddle, which is a payments platform. So, like, highly sensitive data, like
Mhm.
highly secure infrastructure that needs to be reliable and scalable. So, like, we're not at a
Right.
point where like PMs are like sort of building stuff that's going to production, but like PMs can very easily and these days build prototypes to throw in front of a customer to validate a hypothesis or a set of hypotheses, right? And
Mhm.
they can do that without having to require, I guess, development resource, which is making
Mhm.
product engineering organizations more efficient, right? So I think getting MVPs to market more quickly, validating concepts, validating prototypes, testing ideas with customers, um,
Right.
without just like saying, "Hey, I've got this idea. Do you like it?" It's like, "I've got this idea. I've done a mock up. Here it is. React to the actual thing and not just my words." Is really really powerful, right? So I think there are a few things that are great for product managers, like execution speed, the ability to generate prototypes, and sort of leveling up strategic thinking. I think something that is interesting I've spent a bit of time reflecting on is the idea that I guess the idea that perhaps AI is making PMs less customer centric, and I'll talk about what I mean by that. I think there is a world in which AI is deepening our understanding of customers. There's
Mhm.
also a world in which AI is distancing PMs from customers. And the reason I
Right.
say that is because I think PMs these days have an incredible ability to access customer insight without actually talking to customers, right? So
Mhm.
our sales teams are talking to customers every single day.
Mhm.
There are hundreds of calls every week that get uploaded to Gong at Paddle. And it's very, very easy to generate customer insight by writing a few prompts and letting it spit out all the data from those calls, right? So that's great because you can get a lot of insight cheaply and
Exactly.
quickly, right? What it does though is it distances the product manager from the customer themselves. And I think it's
Mhm.
really it's something that we have to be aware of because a lot of the value of talking to customers is actually emotive. It's not
Mhm.
necessarily what they say, it's how they say it. So if a customer gives a point of
Right.
feedback about something, the tone they use, the types of words they use, the language they use, the look on their face, right? is actually a really important input into understanding their perception of that problem. And when you're just using AI to effectively build scripts that just pump out data and then saying that's all the customer insight, all you're doing is making yourself in some ways less proximate to the actual customer. And I think there's value in remaining proximate to the customer. So I think on the one hand, AI is great because we can generate an insane amount of customer insight that we couldn't do before very easily. But at the same time, I'd be wary of PMs using that as a reason to not talk to customers or not get FaceTime with customers, because the emotive reaction, the emotive response, the delivery of that feedback is so crucial for you to understand how your product resonates with your customers.
And something that I take from your insights as well is, again, the importance of our differentiation will be much more towards relationships. Again, cross-functional alignment with other peers, with other team members, and aligning them towards a vision. And with customers, again, doing exactly the same, and partners. And probably all the rest, even in, I would say, even in the strategic thinking level, even AI can help a lot there, but you still need also to make the decision and direct sometimes also the AI in a
Yeah.
certain direction. So I agree with you. The strategic thinking is not there yet, but still, I already see people that are able to up their game because of AI, because they would not be thinking about certain topics if it was not
Yeah.
AI bringing them
I
up,
mean,
right? So yeah,
yeah. From like a strategy perspective, I definitely use AI to help me articulate strategic concepts.
exactly,
So when I will often bring like a strategic concept or some strategic thinking to a chat GPT or to a Gemini and say, listen, like I've got this idea. I'm trying to work through how I should frame this concept
exactly.
or how I should articulate this concept. How
Becomes
can I make
cleaner.
this pithy and concise? Is there a framework that I can use to communicate this really easily? And it's super effective at that, actually. It is super effective at that if you feed it the
Yeah.
sort of thinking and it can help you sharpen your thinking. I think that's a great use case for AI.
Lucas, the time is coming to an end when we are having fun. So we always like to wrap up our show with a question that allows you to also share a bit more about yourself. So if you'd have the opportunity to have a coffee with the Lucas that was coming from Paris and thinking, should I go to Australia? Should I stay in Europe and join a scale up and join paddle? What would you tell to that Lucas?
That is a good question. I would tell them to stay. Firstly, I love Australia, but I definitely tell Lucas to stay in Europe and continue the adventure. I think the thing I'd probably remind myself of is that not every experience has to have a financial outcome, and sometimes the learning that you gain from an experience is more valuable than the financial outcome. So especially early career, keep indexing towards learning, right? Keep putting yourself in positions where you're going to learn, keep sort of exploring outside of your comfort zone, and ultimately like the financial outcome will come at some point in life, right? Like for me, when I lost the company, there was nothing to show for the 5 or 6 years that I put in, and that was hard, right? When I walked away from it, but on
Absolutely.
reflection, I still think I've generated an enormous amount of wealth from that experience. It might not be in a bank account, but it is definitely there through learning and opportunity. So I think that's what I'd remind myself.
That's amazing. Lucas, it has been a pleasure to have you on the show. We wish you all the best, and you are always welcome to come back. Keep us posted. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike. It's been a pleasure. Appreciate it.
And to our community, thanks for being there. We keep bringing you the best of the best to make your life a little bit easier as you scale up your company. See you soon and keep scaling.